These are the Chat City interviews from 103.2 Preston FM.
Have you ever thought about fostering? For some people, it's the best job in the world. And this autumn, Lancashire County Council aim to recruit new carers to join the hundreds already looking after children and young people in care. Here in Lancashire, there are 1,600 children and young people who have come into the care of the local authority. And to tell us more about fostering, I'm pleased to welcome my guest into the studio. It's Jill Green, and Jill is Fostering Recruitment Manager from Lancashire County Council. So a very good afternoon to you, Jill.
Afternoon, Hughie.
And such an important job in recruiting foster carers and people to look after children. And as we know now for many, many years, one of the government's pledge is, of course, to have children living with families rather than being in care of the local authority. So is the task getting any easier in recruiting foster parents?
Well, in some respects, yes. In some respects, no. Yes, in that we're really sort of proactive now with trying to market and advertise that foster carers are required for the 1,600 children that we need to be looked after in family environments. And so I think the word is getting out there. And the more we can tell people, the more it gets around. And sometimes people don't immediately come to us when they first hear about fostering. They sometimes come months or even years later, because it has to be the right time for a family to foster. And so it's just about getting the word out there. And it's a fantastic job that so many people just love doing once they get into it.
Mm. And who makes a foster parent?
Well, foster carers are just ordinary people. They can be single, they can be in a couple, they can be in same-sex couples, they can be parents, or they might not be parents. Anyone can be a foster carer as long as they're over 21 years old and they've got a real love and desire to help children and to look after children. We do expect quite a lot back from you in return, because our children all have, sort of the need to go to school, they need to be kept healthy, they need to have a good diet, they need to see their family. And so we expect you to make sure that all those things happen for a child in the best possible way. If people out there have got their own children, they'll know what they want for their children, and we want exactly the same for the looked after children of Lancashire.
And the 1,600 children who are with Lancashire at the moment, are we talking about children of all ages?
Absolutely. They're from brand new babies born today right through to 18 and sometimes later, over 18-year-olds as well. So yes, a whole spectrum of children. And we sort of look for carers who are very flexible, who can offer children a wide range of services, really, in terms of what sort of children they would look after, because lots of children need nurturing. For example, a tiny baby might need nurturing, but equally a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old or an 8-year-old might need a lot of nurturing. And so if you've got good nurturing skills, then we'd match a child to sort of to that and sort of what they need. Likewise, some children might need good boundaries. They might never have had boundaries before that. A 12 or 15-year-old might need boundaries, but so might a 3-year-old. We've got many 3-year-olds who've never had boundaries, and what we need are people, to sort of be able to support a child, whatever age, to sort of, find that boundaries make them safer and make them happier.
And in previous years, and often it has come from the media, there has been bad press about the kind of time it takes to foster children. We've had stories of political correct issues where someone couldn't foster a child because maybe they were from a different ethnic background. So I think in previous years people maybe have put off applying to be foster carers or foster parents. Has that situation now changed?
Well, it's a sort of continual political issue, really. But we never turn down anyone on the basis of their race, their religion, their gender, or their sexuality. So we look at everyone and consider everyone equally as parents, as foster carers. What we're looking at is people who've got the skills and qualities to be foster carers. So I hope that would never put people off. In terms of the timescales, well, we always try and do it as quickly as possible. But there are now regulations in place that mean that that approvals have to be done within 8 months of the initial application to foster. So that sort of focuses us. I would say that the majority of our carers have always been done within that time, unless there's been a specific issue to deal with. But that's now regulations, and so it very much focuses everyone in getting the task done within an 8-month period. 8 months might seem an awful long time to some people, but in actual fact there's a lot of work to be done in the assessment process. We have to get all the statutory checks, your DBS, which is the new name for the CRB certificate. We have to contact all sorts of agencies to check out your credibility as potential foster carers. And we have to really understand you and your family, because every family is different, and we don't have a blueprint for who's the best foster carer. It's about understanding you, understanding your family, and understanding how you function, so that we can make the best choices for our children who need to be looked after.
And do prospective foster parents, do they have quite a say in the young person they're going to be looking after? Maybe some want to look after a baby, or some are more inclined to an older child, or a boy or a girl. How much say do the foster parents have in that respect?
Okay, well, we always have to think that we need foster carers to meet the needs of our children. And our children are, as I said before, from 0 right through to 18. And so we really encourage carers to be very flexible. Because if a carer comes along and says, I only want to foster a baby, under 2 or something like that, and we don't have any babies, but we've got, half a dozen children who are 4, 5, 6 or even older waiting to be placed, those children can't be placed and the foster carer can't be used. And so we don't really encourage people to be too specific, but we will always give people the choice of whether they would foster a specific child. Nobody has to say yes to a specific child. They would know as much as possible about them, about their needs, about their background, and they would always have the choice to say yes, they feel they could manage that, or no, they couldn't. In addition to that, all our foster carers get fantastic support. We've got 4 teams based around the county, and so there's your social worker, as the foster carer's social worker is never more than a few miles away, and there's always somebody at the end of the phone. So we've got fantastic support. So, if carers are taking on a new task, something that they don't feel particularly comfortable with to begin with, then there's always support there. We've got support workers, we've got social workers, we've got other foster carers who will support you. We've got lots of training, lots of support groups, all there to help you build your confidence and your skills as a foster carer.
And somebody out there maybe listening now who's thought about this, or actually thinking about this because of this interview, what questions would you suggest that they pose to themselves first of all?
The questions to pose themselves. Right, well, I think the main question is, can I really commit to a child, to looking after a child who's not a member of my family? Another question is everyone in my household and my family equally committed to this? Because one partner can't do it. If you're in a couple, then you both have to be committed to it. If you've got children, whether they're young children living with you or older children who are adult, they have to be happy with it as well, because it will change everyone's lives. So you've also got to have the time to commit. So if you're out every morning from 8 in the morning, not back till 7 at night, working full time, you probably haven't got the time. But if you can be flexible, and we do have couples who both work, but it's about being able to be flexible, being able to meet the needs of the children. Obviously, a preschool child needs a full-time carer, but children at school, people can work, and sometimes you have a couple who one works one shift, one works the other shift, and so it works out that way. So it's being able to meet the needs of the child, having everyone in your family, your household consulted and happy with it, and being convinced that you actually want to make a difference to a child.
And, you've kind of someone out there thinking, well, yes, I could say yes to nearly all those questions. And they then apply. During that kind of 8-month period, what are the main processes that will then take place?
Well, initially, we'd ask you to complete quite a comprehensive form that's called the initial inquiry form, and that gives us all the information we need to send out for our statutory references. So we have to ask people to cast their minds back and remember where they lived from birth. And that's sometimes a bit of a challenge, all their school experiences, all the jobs they've had, because we do need to seek references. If you've ever worked with children or vulnerable adults, we need to do that. So it's completing that form that takes quite a bit of time. That form will then be collected by one of our support workers, and they will check it through with you and just check that we've got all the information that we need. You'll then attend a training course that's called Skills to Foster Training, and that takes place over 2.5 days or 5 evenings. Sometimes it's during the week, sometimes it's at weekends, and sometimes it's evenings. It depends on what fits in with your daily schedule, really. At the same time, you would be allocated a social worker who would be assessing you, and the social worker would visit you probably around about 6 to 8 times, including seeing you separately if you are a couple. If you've got children, all your children would be interviewed as well. And at the same time, we'd be asking you for references for the names of 6 people who could be personal references for you, and we'd select some of those people to interview personally. It's really, really thorough, but we don't give any apologies for that, because in the end, these are our most vulnerable children, and we need to be sure that they're safe, that they're happy, that they're healthy, and that it's something that you really want to do. And that's about it, really. At the end, a huge report is completed. It's called the Fostering Network's assessment report. You read that. You've written bits of it. You've done your homework and you've written bits of it, and you see it all.
And I take it you have to be a British national to apply?
No, you have to have residency. But we do have people who don't have British passports, but you do have to have residency and permission to remain in the country. If you've ever lived abroad, then you would be responsible for seeking a good reference character from the countries that you've previously lived in.
Right. And then once you've gone ahead and you've passed through all those various stages and you're looking after someone, what level of support do you then get?
Oh, the support, there's a huge amount of support. You have your own social worker, and the child has their own social worker. Each support team, and as I said before, there are 4 teams across the whole county. So each support team have their own support workers as well, and they will support you in anything you do. Initially, you would have contacts weekly, and then once you feel settled, there would be at least monthly contacts and at least monthly visits. But if you're going through a difficult time, then there will be more than that. People will be there for you and visit you as much as you need to be. There's also support groups, and there are dozens and dozens of support groups throughout the county, throughout the whole year, and run again at different times during the day, in the evenings. And you are expected to attend at least 6 of these support groups in a year. And that's an opportunity, sort of there's guest speakers, or sometimes it's just sort of a forum to meet with other carers and chat and build up your own support networks with other carers and meet other carers and learn from each other's experiences. There's also formal training that there's some mandatory training courses that you have to do within the first year, and then over and above that there's training courses that are supplementary to the sort of essential ones that depend on where your skills lie, where your interests lie, what you're doing. There's lots of opportunity for development. For example, we're developing a sort of small scheme at the moment called there's one called LIFT, which is basically about foster carers being able to support families directly to allow children to either return home quicker or to allow children to remain in home and not come into the care system. And that's a really rewarding thing to feel that you're doing. We also do like mother and baby placements, so there'd be training about if you feel able to take a parent and a baby, a parent and a child, to help them get back on their feet. I mean, that's, sort of another really rewarding thing to do. So I'm just trying to think, I should have brought my list of support network, sort of list of things that we do, because there's so many. There's regularly local events that are held, routinely throughout in different areas. So that would depend on where you live. There might be picnics in the summer, there might be pantomimes in the winter that your own children attend as well. I'm just trying to think. I'm sort of, my mind's gone a bit blank there in terms of other support offered. I'll remember if
quite a few there.
Yes.
Well, if you do take someone into your home, of course, it can be very expensive. So what about the financial allowances?
Okay, right. Lancashire runs what's called a tier system. Now, I haven't actually got the exact amounts with me at the moment, I'm afraid. But most newly approved foster carers would start on tier 1, and following the first year of fostering, as long as they've met some criteria, they would go up to tier 2 after their first review, which is usually held at 10 months in ready for the 12-month anniversary. So a tier 1 for all foster care allowances are paid according to the age of a child, and there's 3 or 4 bands. There's 0 to 4, there's 5 to 11, there's 11 to 15, and then there's 16 and over. Okay, so it goes up according to the age of the child, and but when you go up to tier 2, the sort of basic rate you get, and then there's an additional rate which works out at £115 additionally for every child that you foster when you go to tier 2. And then a few carers do go up to what's called tier 3, but those are carers who give a significant amount, not just look after the child to a very high standard and offer them an excellent level of care in all respects, but also people who give added value. For example, they might be people who do the lift scheme and sort of support families to make sure children go back home quicker, or they might be people who help us with our recruitment events and come along and tell people about what it's like to be foster carers. There's all sorts of opportunities for people to sort of add in that extra value of being a foster carer. There might be people who sit on our fostering forum and support new carers who come in, act as their buddy and sort of be there for them. Instead of coming to a social worker. So there's lots of different avenues to go from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 for foster carers. So whereas some people feel that initially the tier payment, it's adequate, and it's certainly in line with national guidelines, but some people feel that it could be a little bit more at that stage. But certainly by the time you get to tier 2 after 12 months, it's a bit like a career progression.
Yes.
You start and then you work up increments, really. Yes. So by the time you've been fostering for a year, as long as you've met certain criteria, which the majority of foster carers do meet, then the actual financial aspect of it does become much more sort of
in line with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, can I thank you, Jill, for coming in and telling us all about fostering. Where would the best place be for people, our listeners, to go to find out more information, or to, maybe inquire about fostering?
Well, the best place to go would be our website. So that's lancashire.gov.uk and then /fostering. There's a huge amount of information on our website, including a DVD and all sorts of information, including most of the stuff that we've talked about today. So you can also inquire. There's a link to make an inquiry for that, and if you make an inquiry by the website, then you'll be contacted by the duty officer in my team, either same day or the next working day, depending on what time you make that contact. It's just useful to note that we do give an option that when people like to be contacted, morning, afternoon, evening, and obviously a lot of people say evening, which we're fine to do, but if you can be contacted during the day, then it does make it easier for us. The other alternative is to phone our free phone number, which is 0800 195 1183.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in this afternoon. That's Jill Green, Fostering Recruitment Manager from Lancashire County Council. So thank you very much, Jill. Thank you.
If you have any news or events you'd like to share with Hughie and our Chat City team, why not give us an email, chatcity@preston.fm.